We're all... Good evening and welcome to episode 9 of the Walking Dead TV podcast, Tell It to the Frogs. My name is Jordan.
It's Russ.
I'm Jim.
This is John.
And we want to welcome you to our episode. We had a lot of fun watching Tell It to the Frogs and we can't wait to get into the episode discussion. But first, we have some news. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Yes, we have a sponsor for today. It is Action Lab Entertainment. Our buddy, Mr. Sean Pryor, who's been a friend of our shows for a long time, has moved over from PKD to president of Action Lab Entertainment. And here's a little message from them.
Hey everybody, this is Sean Pryor, president of the newly formed Action Lab Entertainment. For those that don't know, Action Lab Entertainment was formed earlier this year when 4 independent small press comic book creators such as David Wunsch from Space Time Condo, Sean Gabrin from Every Known Comics, Chad Ciccone of Mercury and the Merv, and me from PKD Media decided to combine our 20 years of experience to create our first major project, Fracture. We're currently attempting to raise $3,600 via Kickstarter.com to print, solicit, and publish our first issue of Fracture, which tells the tale of Virtue, the great hero of the city of Lower Triton, the maniacal supervillain Malice, and an average Joe named Jeff. All three of these people have one thing in common, but if you want to know more about this, go to Kickstarter.com and type Action Lab in the search header, or head over to ActionLabComics.com for more details. For those that are interested in donating to this project, donations start as low as $1. But if you wish to donate $10 or more, you can receive rewards such as Action Lab Entertainment buttons, exclusive copies of Fracture number 1, original art pages from Fracture, the original sketch cards, 8x11 sketches, paintings, and so much more. The higher the donation, the more one can receive. So, if you wish to be an honorary lab tech for Action Lab Entertainment, your donation can make Fracture a reality. Remember, you can go to Kickstarter.com and type Action Lab in the search header, or head over to ActionLabComics.com for additional details. We sincerely thank you in advance for your donation and your support. Peace.
So besides Sean having the smoothest speaking voice I've ever heard and the coolest background music ever, he's a really good guy. These are like the good guys in comics, the little guys trying to get their feet in the door. Kickstarter's a really cool concept. If anybody doesn't know, it's kind of like you set up a presentation for your project and you see how much money you can raise. And they're doing pretty well. So we will link to the Kickstarter definitely and see if we can't help our buddy Sean out. And
It's kind of like this weird indie comic super friends in a way because, on their own, Sean Gabrin and Dave Blanche and Chad Ciccone and Sean were all doing really cool things separately. Now they're working together with Fracture. I'm really looking forward to see what they do.
Yeah, and you know what's a really good point as well? For all the people that are enjoying Walking Dead and now you're hearing so much about the comics and maybe you're thinking about, dipping your toes in the comic book water, check out sites like PKD Media where there are free webcomics. And you can try out a comic book, online for free and get a feel for what it's like to read one and see the art and see how you like it. So that's definitely something that we should stress as well.
Yes, contrary to popular belief, The Walking Dead is not the only good comic out there. There are actually lots of them.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so how about some more news? Jordan, we have some ratings for the latest show?
You better believe it, John. Well, let's recap. For episode 1, Days Gone By, we had, I believe it was 5.3 million viewers. It was the highest rated cable premiere in 2010, highest rated episode of any show ever on AMC, beat a whole bunch of stuff even on network television. Episode 2 dropped a little bit, 4.7 million, but still, that's a very slight drop off. Episode 3 did not drop. No, it did not even stay the same. Episode 3 went from 4.7 million viewers to 5.1 million viewers, an increase in the overall viewership. What do you guys think about that?
Well, that's opposite of what it usually trends. Isn't it? Usually they try to hold on to retention from the first, like the premiere show. It's usually always the highest rated and they try to hold on to as many as they can. It must be, I think it's word of mouth, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it definitely helped also that they replayed episodes 1 and 2 on Sunday night, so anybody who hadn't watched yet got a chance to jump in and watch them all right in a row.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good sign. They already renewed it for a second season, but you need to keep that buzz going and keep people interested in it and wanting to come back because we want a season 3 and a season 4. So the more people that jump on the bandwagon and it gets good word of mouth, the better off we'll have of possibly making sure that there's more budget thrown at season 2 and that they don't have to worry about we had to spend a bunch of money on the pilot to make it look good and we got Frank Darabont to direct and it had its look and feel and now we have to be real budget conscious for season 2 and I'm guessing since it's exceeding expectations that they'll be able to probably get a little bit better clientele and a little bit better ad rate for season 2.
I caught Robert Kirkman on Twitter today. I didn't catch him. He didn't respond to me or anything. I didn't message him, but I saw him on Twitter and he was thanking everybody for watching and mentioning the ratings and people are just like, you are the new king of cable. And they really are at this point. It's unbelievable when you look at a site like Ain't It Cool and they do their ratings column and they kind of compare like everything that was on every channel. It's amazing where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's very surprising. I wouldn't have expected it to be doing better than the other AMC stuff that has gotten really good word of mouth, like especially Mad Men and Breaking Bad. But for everything on cable and even some network, I think that speaks a lot for for the word of mouth for what they were able to do in getting the press that they got to get it out and just putting out a quality product. I think people are responding to the fact that this is not your average network television TV show.
Conversely, AMC just announced they're getting rid of Rubicon as well.
Yeah, and Rubicon's ratings were astronomically small. I mean, I hear it was a really good show. I watched the first couple episodes and then kind of fell away. But yeah, nobody was watching it, even less than like Mad Men or Breaking Bad. It was just a very minute audience. So it's a shame that they lost it. But if people can't watch it or if people don't watch it, what can they do?
Yeah, it was a very good show. Unfortunately, it was the type of show that you can enjoy that first season because it's a good show, but the whole idea was kind of unraveling this giant conspiracy. And season 1 was just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, and now it's gone. So it's going to be tough to stand alone.
Yeah, that's always the risk with a show like that, unfortunately. So next in our news, we actually have some information on hatches in the bottom of tanks. John, do you want to take that one?
Hatches in the bottom of tanks exist.
At least on some models of tanks. What model was that?
As soon as I searched it, Sherman tank schematics started popping up, and there is an escape hatch. They also were used to pick up wounded as they rolled by. So can you imagine that? Like you're laying on the ground in World War II, so they roll the tank over you and open the hatch underneath and pull you up into it. So that was pretty wild. But that research came about. We had a voicemail last week saying there's no way there could be a hatch underneath the tank, and then it kind of went back and forth on Twitter, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to Google this, and I Googled escape hatch on tank, and the first 15 responses that came up in Google were all people arguing over The Walking Dead.
That's awesome.
And then I was able to find instances of it actually being accurate. So there are.
We should say we don't know off the top of our heads, I don't think, what model of tank that was, so maybe that model doesn't have one, kind of like certain guns not having safeties or whatever, but at least some tanks do have it, so that's good to know.
Yes, absolutely.
We also found out who plays Buster, at least according to one of our listeners. And that person is apparently Gary Busey. And we have a nice graphic of Gary Busey side by side with Buster, and the resemblance is uncanny. So thank you for that. That submission. We'll get to your actual tester email later on, but we did want to mention the casting news there right now.
Yeah, you know what? There's been another little bit of misinformation. Charlie Adler, the current artist for The Walking Dead, he does play a zombie on maybe the pilot, or even he might have shown up in a couple of shows, but that is not Buster. Buster is not Charlie Adler. Brad, who we should mention before we get in trouble again, cannot make it tonight, and he's very sorry. And we have a message from Brad later on that we'll play. Brad did mention the name of the actor who is playing Buster, and of course I am not prepared, and I do not have that name in front of me, but it is not Charlie Adler. He's playing a different zombie.
We also had a celebrity zombie tonight, or not tonight, but in Tell It to the Frogs, but I guess we'll get to that when we get to the recap.
Sounds good. Yeah, the last thing I'd like to mention is we threw it out there on Twitter and asked if our listeners would like bloopers at the end of the show. And it was pretty much unanimous that everybody would like to hear us screw up. So if you hang around after the closing music of this show, we will play a little blooper reel. We at least have some stuff from last show. Who knows if we'll screw up a lot on this show or not. The chances are pretty good. But
I was gonna say, you'll have 1 hour of Walking Dead TV podcast number 9 and 90 minutes of blooper.
yeah.
What are you talking about? We never screw up.
Okay, so before we get into the Frogs recap, we're going to send it over to Jim quickly. We have a couple of iTunes reviews we want to get into now. We thank everybody for leaving them, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank the people who did leave reviews on iTunes. We always are looking for those to help us, get the word out and get noticed, maybe in the new notable on iTunes, or just to get the word out there on the podcast. So if you haven't already, take the 30 seconds and write us a review on iTunes like these fine people did. Our first iTunes review, 5 stars from Wild Mercy. The best podcast of The Walking Dead out there. Johnny's awesome. Jim's the man. Brad rocks out with his deleted out and tells it how it is. Russ brings the real, and Jordan, oh Jordan, you are my Lori. Thanks guys for making a great show. Wild Mercy, Charlie C. Thanks a lot, Charlie.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
Did you really feel the need to Rick Rollin?
I figured it was an appropriate response.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Charlie. You're right. Absolutely, I am the man. Next is from Herd03, another 5-star review, spoiler-free podcast. This podcast is a great supplement to the TV show. I haven't read the comic book yet and appreciate the trouble this show goes to in order to avoid spoiling the TV series for people like me. I listened to another show, and a little more than halfway through, they dropped a spoiler from the books right on me. So not cool. These guys aren't obsessed with the violence and gore and focus on the drama of the series, which I appreciate. Good entertainment. Thanks a lot, Herd03. Really appreciate that. And we're glad that people are noticing that we're going out of our way to keep it spoiler-free for the people who are only watching the show and haven't read the comics. So.
And it's so freaking hard.
It is very difficult, but I think according to this, we seem to be doing a good job, guys. And again, thanks for the iTunes reviews, and if you're listening to the show, if you have an extra minute or so, please leave us one. We really appreciate it.
If you are interested in spoilers, I would like to suggest an article I read just today. Go to toplessrobot.com. It's not what it sounds like. It's a geek website. And they had an article of, I think it was the top 15 Walking Dead moments that they'll have trouble getting away with on TV. It's definitely got tons of spoilers, but if you've read the comic, you're going to get a kick out of it.
Well, I believe it is now time to hand things over to Russ and get on with the Frogs discussion.
Yes. So episode 3 starts pretty much where we left off episode 2 with we get Merle on the roof, and he's pretty delirious. He's still, of course, chained up to that metal pole or that metal piece of structure with his handcuffs on. At this point, he realizes he's been left behind, and he's starting to realize that the way he's lived his life is kind of catching up to him, and he starts like retelling stories from his past, and just really then starts to freak out and realizes that God's punishing him for basically being a bad guy.
Let me ask you a real quick question. Did you guys think he was on drugs during this, or he was just dehydrated and kind of just out of it? I mean, because he's talking to like his old commander. He pretty much tells God he's not going to beg for his life, all this kind of stuff. Do you think he's still like whacked out on pharmaceuticals? Or?
He was high last episode, and he definitely had some sunburn, some extreme sunburn on his forehead. So I'm assuming they're saying he was suffering from heat stroke in addition to the meth or coke or whatever it was.
I was just curious what your guys' take on it was.
Yeah, I think it's open to interpretation, but I guess they were pretty clear that he was on some kind of drugs, and they definitely show the sun and everything. So he's getting it from all sides right now.
And how awesome was Michael Rooker in that scene? I mean, he took a two-dimensional character from last episode and turned into somebody who you still hated, but still kind of fell for all of a sudden.
Yeah, it made me very uncomfortable even to watch him. Like I said, as much as you hated him, when he starts like pulling on his arm and he starts to just really freak out, it was very unsettling to watch that. So after that, we get our credits intro, and we cut back after the credits are over and we get back from the commercial break. We cut back to Rick and crew that are tooling along, and Glenn's having a bit of fun. He likes the fact that he's got a nice, sweet Dodge Challenger that he can highway with.
Yeah, we screwed that up, right? We called it a Charger, I think.
Yeah, I was yelling at my iPod since I wasn't on that show.
Figures the car guy's not on that show.
It is a Dodge Challenger. So then we cut back to the camp, and Lori is cutting Carl's hair, which he doesn't like very much. And it's kind of funny because it's almost like Lori, Carl, and Shane at this point are kind of having like their own little family scene, and everybody's getting along with each other and they're just talking. And Shane goes on about how he's going to teach Carl how to catch frogs, and Carl doesn't quite understand why they would need to catch frogs. And Shane says, after all the beans are gone, or you've had your 50th can of beans, you're going to want something different, and frogs make good eating. And Carl's not buying it. So this is going on. One of the things I noticed myself was Shane talks a lot.
Also, Shane kind of looks like John Oates without the mustache.
This is where we got the cool Miss Piggy line, right? From
Yes.
from Lori. That was pretty funny. I got a chuckle out of that.
Yeah, but I just noticed he just and I noticed it a little bit in the last one, but it just really came to light here that he just likes to talk and listen to himself talk.
Yeah, I think they definitely are portraying him as kind of like a slick, fast talker. I mean, I think that'll help explain things, Even that opening scene in episode 1 where he's kind of giving that spiel to Rick about his girlfriends not shutting off lights and stuff like that. It's like he's got like a presentation every time he speaks, Like he's always trying to put one over, or he's always trying to get over, I should say.
Yeah.
For fans of continuity errors, pay attention to Carl's hair. In shots from behind, it's very short, and in shots from front, it's like 3 inches longer. I thought that was kind of funny.
Nice, I didn't catch that.
Like he's literally rocking a mullet in certain angles.
Oh, that I did notice. I did notice they showed him at one point his hair in the back looked very long. It was kind of funny.
Business in the front, part in the back.
Heck yeah. So then we cut to Dale. He's being the lookout, and right away I like Dale.
Dale is the man.
Dale is a man. It didn't take much, but I just like the way that Jeffrey DeMunn is playing his character. It's coming across very, very well. Very different, I think, in look and in certain aspects than in the comics, but I think it's very well done for what they're doing with it.
That'd be a character that I'd like to hear from the listeners about as well. Just again, we have more information. So are we saying Dale's the man, or is everybody thinking that they like him so far, or maybe they don't have enough yet to make a decision? I just really find that kind of thing interesting at this point.
So then they start freaking out because they hear this alarm and they hear kind of engine noises in the distance, and they're wondering what's going on, and they're all kind of getting ready for it. Just at that time, they pull out the goggles. They see Glenn kind of fishtailing around the corners, and he comes up and they realize, no, it's a car, probably stolen, as Dale says. So they all come up, and Rick drives up in the truck, and it was kind of interesting the way they did it. Glenn gets out, and then some of the others get out, and Rick kind of stays behind, and everybody's kind of seeing, and then they talk about the new guy, and they're like, what new guy? And
I thought they were pretty quick to dismiss the fact that car alarm would attract zombies.
Yeah, I agree, but they mentioned it. They didn't just let him pull up with the car alarm going off and just dismiss it. I mean, they had a little talk about, oh, well, it was moving so fast and it echoes so much that you'd never be able to pinpoint it or whatever. And that was enough for me. I mean, at least they acknowledged it,
Right.
I agree there.
So Rick finally kind of rounds the corner as he gets out of the car, and he's kind of depressed and down. And Shane kind of sees that it's him, and you can almost see that he really does. I got the impression that he really was happy to see Rick. And then of course Carl looks up and sees his dad, and Lori looks up and sees Rick is back. And it was just a really cool, sappy to some degree, but kind of slow mo scene where Carl comes up to Rick and he hugs him. And to me, I just thought it was very moving. I mean, you have Rick who, he literally falls on the ground after he hugs his kid because he's so happy to see him. And I just thought that was very touching and very well done. We talked a little bit, I think, about some of the shortcomings, and that's probably a strong word, of the direction of episode 2, given what we saw with episode 1. And I think it's starting to kind of level off here. I'm not sure if the director was the same for 3 as it was for 2, but I thought this one was a little bit more well done than episode 2.
I really enjoyed the acting in the scene, and they weren't words spoken, but the looks that were going back and forth between Lori and Shane. It still had you guessing though. Like, are they both hiding something? Is it Shane's fault? Is it Lori's fault? You still got the sense of what's going on here, which was awesome. I thought
that look that Lori gives Shane just really, you didn't know what to think after that. Like you said, John, it just was very. But I thought it was cool that they actually made a point of showing that they're kind of building some tension to some degree.
The director for this episode was Gwyneth Warder Payton, who has directed episodes of Walking Dead, of course, Sons of Anarchy, Blue Bloods, Numbers, Cold Case, Criminal Minds, The Shield, Fringe, Battlestar Galactica. So she's got quite the pedigree there.
So then we cut to nighttime, and it's getting later, and Shane is kind of playing the part of the lead dog at this point. That's what I got, where we see Ed puts another log on the fire, so to speak, and it stokes it up a little bit, and Shane kind of has words with him that, hey, they want to keep it to, barely above embers because they don't want to attract anybody. They don't want to be able to be seen from far away. And so him and Ed kind of get into it a little bit, which is interesting, knowing, what comes in later in the episode. And then we're able to finally meet Carol and Sophia, I'm sorry. And, as fans of the comic and knowing the comic, it was interesting to see Carol and Sophia finally.
I think we should probably mention while we're here that Ed is a new character. So
yes.
There's another one for that list.
I think he's mentioned in the book, but not seen.
Right, and I appreciate his inclusion because I think I could see where this is going to go eventually, and I think it'll make an interesting confrontation. So then Dale talks about Daryl's going to be pissed about the fact that Merle's not there, and so the group kind of doesn't know what to do at that point. They're just kind of you can see the tension is kind of brewing when he brings that up, that they know it's going to be trouble when Daryl gets back. So then we cut over to Rick and his family who are in their tent, and they kind of have their little reunion at bedtime. And again, just more kind of family time between them, and they Carl goes off to bed, and Rick and Lori kind of have a scene, and again Rick brings up the whole fact that the pictures were gone. That's how he knew she was alive, and then Lori kind of alludes to the fact that things weren't greatest when it went down, and that there were some bad times, and she even asked him if he wants his ring back, that kind of thing. So again, it makes it more curious and more curious about whether Shane and Lori were kind of involved prior to Rick being shot, or if it's something that's just materialized since the zombie apocalypse. I'm leaning towards the fact that they had something going on prior to.
Now, see, I kind of thought that before, but scenes later on in this episode would make me think that that's not the case.
Yeah, you would think that Shane would use that to defend himself when Lori was giving him the verbal lashing later on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I think for me, this episode really redeemed Lori in my mind, which again, we're probably unfair about it, assuming or whatever. But this episode put it all on Shane. But I could be wrong. It could be a twist, but that seems to be the way it's going.
True. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. So Rick and Lori are kind of able to finally have a bit of a reunion with each other. We cut to a commercial, and when we come back, of course, it is morning, and we get a glimpse around the camp, and we get to see people kind of doing chores, and we're getting more of a sense of how life is like for these people. That they're still doing laundry, and they're everybody kind of has their job. And we cut over, and it made me sad to see them stripping that Challenger down as it did Glenn, pulling the wheels off and just kind of scavenging parts and gasoline and everything else that they could deal with. And then Shane pulls up, and he's got water, and again he tells everybody make sure you boil it before you use it, and all that kind of thing. So then, sort of like in the comic, when everything is calm and very idyllic, we get this moment of craziness that's about to happen, and this was fairly tame. But we hear a bunch of screams. Everybody starts running, freaking out. They're assuming the worst. Lori's calling for Carl, and they come upon a zombie that's eating a deer. He's kind of like bent over, and again they didn't scrimp on the gore. I mean, we actually see he's tearing off pieces of flesh and putting them in his mouth, and then the crew decides to just start beating the living daylights out of the zombie, and
so these zombies eat more organ meat than just brains, it would seem, from the scene.
Yes.
He's digging into the deer's thoracic region, to use a clinical term, rather than the brains.
He pulled like an entire steak out of his neck. Did you see that one part when they he gets a good hunk of meat?
Now, I mentioned earlier there was a celebrity cameo as a zombie this week, and this is that zombie. This is Greg Nicotero, who is a special effects guru. He's done pretty much every Romero movie since Day of the Dead. He did Pulp Fiction, Scream, Spawn, Boogie Nights, The Faculty, The Green Mile, House on Haunted Hill. This guy has a huge library of special effects makeup he's done, and now he's been a zombie as well. Although I'm pretty sure he's done it in other movies before this, but hey, now he's been a zombie in The Walking Dead.
Doesn't get much better than that.
And the zombie sort of on the ground, kneeling or leaning over the deer, right off the comic book page.
Yeah, absolutely. So as they start to just beat the living daylights out of this zombie, it seemed funny. They kind of whack it in the head and they're whacking it in the body. And I think it was a T-Dog that has the pitchfork that he's going after him with.
I think Joe had the pitchfork.
Is that what it was? And then of course up comes this proves even further that Dale is the man, because Dale comes up with his hatchet and just whacks his head clean off. And that was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
So of course they take out that zombie, and they start hearing more noise and rustling in the forest. And to me, I thought this was a little phony.
Formulaic.
Yeah, it's very formulaic. Very it didn't surprise me very much that it would be Daryl coming up. And of course he comes up with his crossbow.
Now where's his brother Daryl and his other brother Daryl?
You know what? I agree that it was kind of cheesy that you hear the rustling in the woods and everything, but they did a great job of building Daryl up before you met him. I think the group said Daryl a dozen times before you actually get to see him, and there's a little added oomph to that because it's Norman Reedus, who I found out this week a ton of people were waiting for Norman Reedus to show up on the show. So that was a cool way to kind of build a little tension for him.
probably best known as one of the brothers from the Boondock Saints movies.
Yeah, I should just mention when I do Tweeting Dead, I'll talk about a whole bunch of people, but I kind of met the Norman Reedus unofficial fan club on Twitter. As I was hanging around the Walking Dead hashtag on Twitter and just watching what people were saying, getting ready for the show, there was a ton of people that were super psyched about Daryl Dixon and Norman Reedus coming on, and it definitely stems out of Boondock Saints, but they're like really into all his stuff, and they're a cool bunch of people, but we'll talk about them later.
Absolutely. So then we see a cool thing happen, that the head starts to move again, and the jaws start to open and close, and of course that's when Daryl puts an arrow right in the head and says, it's got to be the brains. Don't you people know nothing?
Yeah.
and then he's a little hacked off because the zombie basically spoiled his hunt, and he even makes a comment about, can we just cut away the parts where he chewed on and eat the rest? And of course nobody's willing to take that risk. But I love the fact that he reclaims his arrows. He pulls the arrows back out of the head and the deer and to reuse them.
It's those consequences again. There's actual amounts of ammo. You have a limited number of arrows and ammunition, and that's definitely part of what makes it cool.
Yeah, you can't reuse a bullet.
Yeah, it's not a John Woo movie. You can't go around shooting everybody with 2 guns at a time.
Yeah, not everybody's got that War Machine cannon on their back with the unlimited ammo. So Shane, they all kind of make it back to camp. Shane tells Daryl about Merle, and then Daryl obviously is pretty hacked off about that, and then Rick kind of steps in and says, "Look, it was me. I'm the one that handcuffed him. Your brother's not easy to get along with. He's not an easy person to talk to." And they have a big scuffle, and of course Daryl goes to pull out a knife. Rick and Shane take him down pretty easy, and Rick wants to kind of make peace with him. He doesn't want, they don't want to have to do anything bad to him. He wants to try and explain to him what's going on and be able to kind of talk about it as men. And so Daryl decides, when they kind of tell him he's probably still alive, they chained up the door, so that as T-Dog put it, the geeks couldn't get him. So
I'm sorry, Russ. I didn't notice. I looked back after I watched this show. I didn't notice they were calling them geeks.
Yeah, Glenn was doing it all through episode 2.
Yeah, I guess I didn't pick up on it or whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just
it's a reference to
we
Day
are
of the
the
Dead.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, we are the geeks though.
We are the Walking Geeks.
Yeah, it's a reference to Day of the Dead. They use that term a lot in that movie.
So when Daryl kind of gets together his plan of going to get Merle, Lori's kind of pissed because she kind of mentions, that Rick will go with him, and Shane and Rick kind of argue about going after Merle, and that's when Rick decides, okay, I got a better angle with this other than just Merle. That there's guns. We can go after the guns. We're going to need more guns and ammunition. We can't get by with what we have. And Rick, outlines all the stuff that he left laying on the ground in Atlanta that's just waiting for them to go back for. And of course, Rick kind of looks to Glenn to be kind of their guide for the return trip, because he's been in and out many times, which I thought was cool. And of course, T-Dog, since he feels some guilt about what happened with Merle, decides he's going to go too.
Yeah, T-Dog owned his mistakes this episode. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So Lori and Rick kind of fight a little more about what's going on, and
Now, can somebody clear this up for me? Because I watched the episode twice and I was a little bit confused both times by Lori. Now, like we said, we're not so mad at Lori as we were before, but Rick tells her, he kind of brings up the idea that I might want to go after Merle. And she goes, you're asking me, telling me. Well, then they get interrupted by something else. And then she kind of volunteers that Rick will go to everybody else.
I took that as she was being very sarcastic.
Oh, okay. That would make sense.
Yeah, Rick the big man will go with you.
But 5 minutes later, she's complaining about it. I'm like, you're the one who volunteered.
Yeah, it was a dig. I think it was that he'd made up his mind already, and so she was just going to kind of stick it in his face.
I guess. Okay, that makes sense then.
And when did, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, Russ. When did he bring up that he was also going back for
For Dwayne and Morgan?
Correct.
Morgan.
Yep, that's what I was trying to say.
That was after he talked about the guns.
Yeah, that's like right at this point. He says that when he has a discussion with Lori, he uses that to kind of justify with her. He's like, look, they're Dwayne and Morgan are going to Atlanta because I told them that's where we meet up, and I have to warn them because they can't go to Atlanta because they're going to run right into what I did, and I have to get the walkie-talkie because the walkie-talkie's in the back. And then this is, I guess, a little inside baseball here, but they make a point of, well, raise them on the CB or raise them on the the cop radio and stuff like that. And then Shane says, no, it won't work. Those old radios, the frequencies won't match. And I thought that was really cool because that is very accurate. After 9/11, and we had a lot of interoperability with radios and stuff like that, especially in rural areas. A lot of fire departments, police departments, everything started to move over to a different to match the same frequency range as big cities. So a lot of the older equipment is using like a UHF band, and the new stuff is all like a 800 megahertz digital spectrum or 900 megahertz digital spectrum. So it makes complete sense to me. Having been involved with some of that to a degree, that older handhelds would not work the way that the big mounted radios in the vehicles would work. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you take this and the comments about why the car alarm wouldn't be a big deal, they're really trying to like waterproof their plot. Like they're taking a little time so that the fanboys and the internets and everybody else can't poke holes in the plot as easily. So that is cool.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a neat little deal there. So. And that's another why he's trying to justify it. It's like he's got a reason for everybody that he should really be the one to go and do this because he's got a lot that needs to be dealt with. So of course they need some bolt cutters, and of course Dale has the bolt cutters. And I like the little interaction they had with Dale where he's pretty hacked off at the fact that he let him borrow his tools and they didn't come back. And so now he's going to give him the bolt cutters. And then Rick said, hey, consider it an investment. Basically give us the bolt cutters and we'll get your other stuff back. But I like the way Jeffrey DeMunn is playing Dale, and I like the way he's kind of an old coot, but he's not being an old coot. I guess he's not being like a crotchety old coot.
Yeah, he's certainly not an old fool. He's more seasoned, I think, is the way he's coming off.
Yeah.
Probably the most pragmatic of the entire group, and that includes Rick.
Yeah.
I mean, he thinks everything through.
I'm just going to say he's like the most practical of the group.
This is really the scene where I came to be fully on board with DeMunn's version of Dale. Like, not that I disliked him earlier on in the series, but there wasn't really enough there for me to grasp what he was going for. And it was the scene I was like, yeah, I would have fun hanging out with this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So then we find that we come across Jim, and Jim wants a hose because the hose on the RV, I guess, is shot. And so Rick pretty much tells him, look, if we make it back, you can take anything you want off that truck. It doesn't matter to me. So they're all kind of like horse trading here to before they take off. So then we get an interesting scene here between Shane and Rick where Shane gives 4 rounds to Rick, and it's funny that because he asks him how many rounds you have in the Python, and Rick tells him none. And so then Shane gives him, he goes, that's funny, 4 bullets, 4 people. So I'm either said this is intentional. Basically, what he's saying is, here's your 4 bullets to put in your gun. If you guys get to the point where you know that you're not going to get out, there's no hope for you at all, you're going to have to kill the 3 of them and then put a bullet in your own head. So the group leaves, and then we get a really cool moment again. And I think this is where we talk about Lori kind of coming around his character and not having that hatred. This is another scene where she has this conversation with Carl, and Carl's real confident. He doesn't, at this point, he thinks his dad is invincible. His dad is Superman. He survived being shot and put in a hospital. He survived the hospital being overrun by zombies. He escaped. He's found them. So he feels pretty good about the fact that his dad's going to go off and do the right thing and be able to come back. And I thought it was cool with Lori because typically, the parent always tries to be the strong one, and she even said, no, I'm scared. I'm scared a little bit. So I thought that was a really cool back and forth that they had with each other.
One thing I wanted to mention, a moment that we might have glossed over, when Rick and Lori are kind of getting intimate after his return and they look in the photo album and all that stuff, you have that moment where Rick looks over and he's kind of afraid that Carl might wake up.
Yes.
And so Lori says he won't wake up. And at this point of the show, we're like, son of a, she's obviously had sex here with Shane, and it didn't wake up Carl.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, man.
Oh, that's exactly what I thought. Exactly.
All I was thinking of was this kid lives in a zombie-filled post-apocalyptic world there. I don't think he's going to be sleeping real deeply,
Well, apparently he sleeps through plenty.
Yeah, that was a good point.
So there was a scene that just happened a few minutes before everybody leaves where Shane is trying to talk Rick out of leaving, and Rick's talking about the guns. But a pretty funny exchange there, like where Shane calls Merle a douchebag, and Daryl goes, choose your words carefully there, and he goes, oh, I did. Douchebag is what I meant. I thought that was Shane's line of the night for sure.
Yeah, Shane gained a little more respect for me at that moment. I thought maybe he's coming around.
And then by the end of the episode, nope.
You have to be pretty badass to mess with those Dixon brothers, though.
So we cut to a commercial break after that, after everybody's gone and Lori and Carl have their moment. And after we come back, we cut back, and again, Dale's kind of being on the lookout. Lori's looking for him, and she goes down to the the pond or whatever, and because Shane is teaching them how to catch frogs. And so this is cool because this is like the gathering place for everybody. It seems like the women are doing the washing down by the pond, and they even make a crack again like they did in the comic that why is it that the women basically women are doing women's work, and they kind of have their little conversation about what they miss from the real world and or from the zombie. And I thought that was interesting. Some of the responses were pretty funny, and we get the scene with Shane and Carl where they're doing the trying to catch the frogs, and obviously the intention is just for Shane and Carl to bond and to spend time together and just have fun. And it was a real knowing that Rick is back, it was really kind of an odd moment, even though they both seem to be enjoying themselves. So at this point, Ed, Carol's husband, starts to basically start giving them a hard time about what they're giggling and laughing about, and that they should just get to work while he sits around smoking cigarettes. And then we cut back over to Lori, who comes up looking for Carl and basically tells Carl, hey, I told you don't leave Dale's sight. And Carl says, well, I was with Shane and he was going to teach me how to do frogs or catch frogs. And then Lori tells him, you don't listen to Shane. And then Shane kind of tries to jump in. And this is where Lori and Shane just basically have it out. And she says, not even just like, hey, we can't go on like we were before. She just flat out tells him, stay away from my kids, stay away from my husband, stay away from me, whatever we had, it's all done, no more. And she and this is the moment where I think we've kind of turned the page on who the true bad person is. And we'll see how it plays out. But Lori really gets on him because Shane is the one that told Lori that he was dead and that he wasn't going to make it, and that they should. I'm guessing that he's the one that was the impetus for them leaving Rick behind. And I don't think we're sure exactly what was said, but it sounds like Shane said that the hospital has been overrun. There's nobody left. Everybody's dead. It's time to go.
Yeah, I would say this is the point where all doubt went away, that Shane initiated the wrongdoing here. I mean, I guess you could still say that maybe something was going on even before Rick went into the hospital, but Shane definitely got this relationship rolling after the quote death of Rick.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I definitely think that's true. At first, I was leaning more in the something was going on prior, but given that we talked about it a little bit and I've kind of thought about it, I think you're right. I think it's almost like Shane used that false pretense as a way to get in good with her, knowing before everything went to hell that they were having problems anyway. So she kind of be right, for his advances. So definitely.
Right. Don't you? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we weren't up to this part yet. Don't you think he totally would have been like, "What are you talking about? It takes two to tango" type of thing. You know what I mean? Like if she were in on it more, or if they were having a relationship beforehand, I think he would have used it against her at this point rather than just take the beating that he did.
Yeah. So we cut back to Rick and crew, and they made it back to the building that they left Merle in and that they escaped from in the previous episode. And there's a zombie that went in the lobby, and it's a really cool scene there. They're all being kind of stealthy, trying to keep quiet, make sure that the zombie doesn't stir up any more of them. And Daryl just pulls up his bow and hits the zombie right in the head, of course, and is able to put it down, and then of course walks back up and gets his arrow back.
They've been adding like a nice sound effect every time he pulls the arrow out of like a skull or that little.
Yeah, just enough to make it juicy. So that was kind of our little interlude, and then we go back to the camp again, and Ed and Andrea now are kind of getting into it, where Andrea's kind of bucking up to Ed because she knows what's coming, she knows how he's been treating Carol, and she's a little hacked off about it, and she basically tells Ed he needs to just go back to doing nothing like he's been doing and go smoke a cigarette, and he wants to bring Carol back with him, and they're getting in between. So Ed ends up smacking Carol, and once this happens, Shane sees what's going on, and he's all pumped up from full of anger from getting beat down mentally from Lori. So he steps in, comes out of the water, and just starts beating the living hell out of Ed and working out all of his aggression. And he just pummels him. I mean, just punch after punch after punch. And the ladies kind of see what's going on, and even though he deserves it, they're still a little freaked out about it and don't think maybe he deserves it that much. That Shane's really going overboard. And of course, I think Carol's got a little bit of a battered wife syndrome going on, so she's actually kind of feeling for Ed a little bit and is crying and tries to get in the middle of it. And Shane gets in Ed's face and basically tells him if he touches Carol or anybody else in this camp again, that he's not going to stop. He's just going to keep on going, and then kind of walks away.
Yeah, this was interesting. One thing that's an ongoing theme in the book is an alpha male struggle that happens a number of different times between some different characters, and I think this is a great example of it here. I mean, Shane was clearly the leader. He had the girl. He took care of Ed at that campfire scene. He's bringing back water. He's the number one guy here. Now Rick comes back. His girl's gone. You can already tell that Rick's going to start making decisions and being thought of. Right away they mention he's a police officer, so everybody's very impressed and kind of expecting him to be a leader in the group. So Shane is just having a real hard time with this, and he totally takes it out on Ed to kind of enforce his his status as the lead male here.
Not to take it on too much of a tangent, but what was up with Shane's pants? Why are they pulled up to his armpits like that? That is just weird.
I don't get it, bro. I think he had black socks and sandals on too, if I'm not mistaken.
He was like that father, just younger.
Yeah, and it's funny because they make a point out of it, like him pulling those pants up while he's in the water. It's funny. It's like it's over-exaggerated almost. So we go back to Rick and the crew. They made it up to the roof. They cut through the chain, and then we get a really cool. I thought this was directed and shot very well. We get a real low shot, and we cut over and we see the hacksaw on the ground, and we slowly pan over, and then of course we see the Daryl's just freaking out. I mean, he's like crying and just yelling and really just kind of losing it. And then we cut over a little more, and of course we see the hand laying there. and then the handcuffs that are just hanging. So Merle has hacked his own hand off to save his bacon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a scene that we all kind of saw coming, but it's still delivered. I mean, seeing the hand laying there next to the bloody cuff and everything was just cool.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the question is, where's Merle? Because that door was still chained shut. So did he go over the side of the roof? Is there another stairway? Is there a fire escape we just haven't seen?
Maybe the helicopter picked him up.
He's flying around in a helicopter, Apocalypse Now style, just shooting at things.
Yeah, at first I was like, maybe they're going to have him like scaling down a drain pipe or something very movie-like, you know? But then I'm thinking, wait a minute, he's got one hand and he just hacked it off. I mean, he can't be feeling that great right now, and I'm sure he lost a lot of blood.
Well, he did have the belt, so he could make a tourniquet.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Good catch.
Yeah. That's what I thought, actually, when he grabbed the belt, that's what he was going to do, is tie his arm off, and he was going to hack it right then. But obviously he needed the belt first to grab the chainsaw, or the chainsaw. He's not Ash. The hacksaw.
Now, there's a flashback we need to see.
Yeah.
Groovy.
This is my boomstick.
So what do we think? Can we go around the horn and kind of give our impressions of the show?
I give it 4.5 busters. I thought it was very good. I thought it was definitely better than the second one, but not quite as good as the first one. Again, I think the way it was shot was, I think the direction was done better. The only thing I had was, I think the editing was a little strange. We had these cuts back to, like, when we cut back to Rick in the group, they were very quick cuts. And I don't know if maybe they were running out of time and figured, okay, if we have to make a cut for time, that at this point the Rick story of them getting back to the building and back to Atlanta is not as important as what's going on in the camp. And they decided to keep that. But I just thought, if you're going to cut away, why cut away for just like 10 seconds or 15 seconds and then cut back to a really long scene and then cut back for 15 seconds and then go back to the camp? It seemed like a strange editing move to me.
I think I'll also give the episode 4.5 busters out of 5. That seems fair to me. I agree with Russ. I don't know if I liked it better than the pilot, but definitely better than episode 2. And yeah, it worked for me as an episode of TV.
I would go 4 out of 5 busters. I enjoyed it. I thought the direction was better in the second episode. Again, like you guys said, didn't think it was as gripping as the pilot. I'm interested that this had more of the pacing of the comic book. Like, a lot of character studies with like just a few punctuating action sequences and whatnot. It'll be interesting to see where the tone travels after this.
Yeah, I'm going with a 4. I like it a lot, just like you guys. I liked it better than Guts. Probably not as much as the pilot. I'm going to leave a little more room for better episodes than this one for 4.5s and 5s because I'm hoping for that, just to keep picking up steam. I think that'd be awesome. The thing I loved about this episode was, even though most of the events in this episode did not take place in the comic, they managed to capture the feel of the comic. I mean,